Hello there everyone. So, in this video, we will be discussing the Constitution of the Philippines in the Spanish, American, and Japanese eras. However, are you still confused about which constitution belongs to these three eras? If you don't, then stay and watch this video until the end and we will explain it to you. So let us begin with the Philippine Constitution under the Spanish era.
The Katipunan's revolution led to the Tejeros Convention were at San Francisco de Malabon, Cavite on March 22, 1897. The first presidential and vice presidential elections in Philippine history were held, although only Katipuneros, vice members of the Katipunan, were able to take part and not the general populace. A later meeting of the revolutionary government established there, held on November 1, 1897 at Biak na Bato in the town of San Miguel de Mayumo in Bulacan, established the Republic of Biak na Bato. The Republic had a constitution drafted by Isabelo Artaco and Felix Ferrer and was based on the first Cuban Constitution. It is known as the Constitución Provisional de la República de Filipinas and was originally written and promulgated in Spanish and Tagalog languages.
And government under the Constitution consisted of the three divisions: the Supreme Council, which was authorized with the power of the Republic, in which it was headed by the President and the four different secretaries, which was the Interior, Foreign Affairs, Treasury, and War. The Consejo Supremo de Garcia y Justicia, Supreme Council of Grace and Justice, which was the authority to create decisions and validate the refute the sentences given by the other courts and to command rules for the administration of justice, and the Assembly D. Representantes, Assembly of the Representatives, which was to be assembled after the revolution to create a new constitution and to choose a new council of government and representatives of the people. The constitution of Biak na Bato was never fully implemented and was overtaken by the Pact of Biak na Bato between the Spanish and the Philippine Revolutionary Army.
So, the Republic of Biak na Bato was referred as the first constitution of the Republic of the Philippines. However, despite its success, it only lasted for a month, and it was de-established by a peace treaty signed by Aguinaldo and the Spanish Governor-General Fernando Primo de Rivera, which included provision for exile of Aguinaldo and key associates to Hong Kong. So since the Constitution was de-established, it was never named as the first constitution of the Philippines, and by that, it was never recognized as one of the Philippine constitutions of today.
And during the American occupation, the Philippines was governed by the laws of the United States of America. Organic acts were passed by the United States Congress for the administration of the government of the Philippine Islands. The first was the Philippine Organic Act of 1902, which provided for a Philippine Assembly composed of Filipino citizens. The second was the Philippine Autonomy Act of 1916, which included the first pledge of the Philippine independence. This law serves as Constitution of the Philippines from 1902 to 1935. In 1934, the United States Congress passed the Philippine Independence Act, which set the parameters for the creation of a constitution for the Philippines. The act mandated the Philippine legislature to call for an election of delegates to a constitutional convention to draft a constitution for the Philippines. The 1934 Constitutional Convention finished its work on February 8, 1935. The Constitution was submitted to the President of the United States for certification on March 25, 1935. It was in accordance with the Philippine Independence Act of 1934. The 1935 Constitution was ratified by the Filipino people through a national plebiscite on May 14, 1935, and came into full force and effect on November 15, 1935 with the inauguration of the Commonwealth of the Philippines. Among its provisions was that it would remain the Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines once independence was granted on July 4, 1946.
As expected, the subsequent occupation by the Americans of the Philippine Islands in the late 1890s after Spain's defeat in the Spanish-American War paved the way for the considerable changes in the control, disposition, and governance of the islands. The judicial system established to keep the regime of the military government function as an instrument of the executive, not of the judiciary, as an independent and separate branch of the government. Secretary of State John Hay on May 12, 1899 proposed a plan for colonial government of the Philippine Islands which would give Filipinos the largest measures of self-government. The plan contemplated an independent judiciary mandated by judges chosen from qualified local experiments.
The pro-Japanese Ganap Party, which saw the Japanese as the savior of the archipelago, was absorbed into Calibapi. Calibapi's first Director General was Benigno S. Aquino. Before the formation of the Preparatory Commission, the Japanese gave an option to put the Philippines under the directorship of Artemio Ricarte, who the Japanese returned from Yokohama to help bolster their propaganda movement. However, the Philippines Executive Commission refused this option and chose to make the Philippines a republic instead. During this first visit to the Philippines on May 6, 1943, Prime Minister Hideki Taha promised to return independence to the Philippines as part of its propaganda of Pan-Asianism, Asia for the Asians. This prompted the Calibapi to create the Preparatory Committee for the Philippine Independence on June 19, 1943. A draft constitution was formed by the Preparatory Commission for Independence, consisting of 20 members from Calibapi. The Preparatory Commission, led by Jose P. Laurel, presented its draft constitution on September 4, 1943, and 3 days later, the Calibapi General Assembly ratified the draft constitution.
During World War II, the Japanese-sponsored government nullified that 1935 constitution and appointed Preparatory Committee on Philippine Independence to replace it. The 1943 constitution was used by the Second Republic with Jose P. Laurel. The 1943 constitution was used by the Second Republic with Jose P. Laurel as president. So the Second Philippine Republic, officially known as the Republic of the Philippines or Republika ng Pilipinas, or known in the Philippines as Japanese-sponsored Philippine Republic, was a puppet state established on October 14, 1943 during the Japanese. President Manuel L. Quezon declared Manila the capital city, an open city, and left it under the rule of George B. Vargas as mayor. The Japanese entered the city on January 2, 1942 and established it as the capital. Japan fully captured the Philippines on May 6, 1942 after the Battle of Corregidor. General Masaharu Homa dissolved the Commonwealth of the Philippines and established the Philippine Executive Commission, a caretaker government with Vargas as its first chairman in January 1942. Calibapi, kapisanan sa paglilingkod sa Pilipinas. The Tagalog for the Organization in the Service of the New Filipino was born by the Proclamation No. 109 of the Philippine Executive Commission, Komisyong Tagapagtanggap ng Pilipinas, a piece of legislation passed on December 8, 1942, banning all existing political parties and creating the new governing alliance.
During his term in office, Laurel was faced with various problems that the country was experiencing, such as the following: shortages of food, clothing, oil, and other necessities, heavy Japanese military presence throughout the entire region, Japanese control of transportation, media, and communications, the Filipino resistance movement, as evidenced by the two assassination attempts against Laurel. So these were all the various problems Laurel faced. Laurel attempted to show that the independence of the Republic was genuine by rectifying these problems. On September 22, 1944, Laurel put the Republic under martial law. On September 23, 1944, Laurel, who refused at first, officially declared war against the United States and the United Kingdom. Following the return of American-led Allied forces, the government of the Second Republic evacuated Manila to Baguio. The Republic was formally dissolved by Laurel in Tokyo, August 17, 1945. So now you know which constitution belongs in which era. And here we will end the presentation. And we hope you learned something today. Thank you, and wait for the next video.